Logan, we appreciate you making some time for us, big fella. How are you?
Great, man. Thanks for having me on. As always, really appreciate it.
Yes, indeedy, my friend. I know I had sent you a flurry of text after Sunday's masterclass offensively. When you went back and broke down the tape, Logan, is my assessment right that I could have run for about 150 on Sunday because that front five and the tight ends really were just working in unison that well?
I mean, those guys did a great job. I don't know if anybody's letting you run for 105 yards out there. Yeah, I mean, I think the offensive line did a great job. I think the scheme was also really good. The plan was really good. It was like all the levels required to have a really good running game did a great job. Cliff, Anthony Lynn, offensive line coach, the offensive line execution, the physicality that Brian Robinson ran with, obviously Chris Rodriguez as well. And again, like it wasn't anything overly complicated, but I do feel like Cliff and Anthony Lynn did a great job of identifying specific looks that they wanted to attack. They used formation, they used personnel to get that to happen, and they ran the football violently and effectively. And again, that all starts with the big uglies up front, and those guys did a really tremendous job.
I thought the interior O-line was a big reason why they struggled for the 3-game stretch, and then they got back on track and played well against Tennessee, which was a little surprising against Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat up front. I thought they did really well. What did you see from that interior O-line that allowed them to get going in the run game and then also help Jaden in the pass game?
Yeah, I think some of the stuff we talked about, or just talked about in terms of scheme, getting into good looks, making sure we're not, kind of working combinations to out-leverage players, like all that stuff's very helpful. Also, I think the way that Tennessee plays, specifically Tavondre Sweat, kind of is very conducive to what those guys do well. Tavondre Sweat's not, he's a very good football player, uses his hands well, he's big, he's athletic, but he's not a great penetrator. I think when you look at the last couple of weeks, the guys that have done a good job of making life tough for the Commanders are, the undersized front of Dallas and all the movement that they brought. Jalen Carter and Philly, guys that are really good penetrators. And I think this is where Anthony Lynn and Cliff Kingsbury did a great job of saying, well, how do we neutralize those guys that really want to get up the field? And you run trap, you run wham. They did a great job running both of those runs. And again, kind of neutralize what made those guys effective. All that being said, those guys had to come out and play football, and I thought you just saw a different level of intensity, specifically from Tyler Biadasz. He's had a great season all year, but he came out and was absolutely a man possessed and was just a ton of fun to watch, like really putting on a master class at center, showing Tavondre Sweat what it means to be, kind of one of the best centers in the NFL, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for how well those three guys on the interior played.
I agree 100%. They were tremendous up front. You mentioned, though, tight ends and wide receivers. Whenever you run for, 267 yards in a contest, everybody involved is doing their thing. How sustainable, though, is this? Me and Toby were talking about this as the show has progressed here. I would describe this offense, Logan, as efficient, but during that 3-game losing streak, the efficiency went away and the explosive plays went away as well. As we get ready for the home stretch and they get to go back in the lab and self-scout, do you think that this way of life that they've been living offensively is something that's sustainable the rest of the way here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that every offense negotiates, is that gnarly word efficiency when it comes to the offense. And I think, yes, they can maintain efficiency, but to doing it. And I think in this game, you saw some examples of getting to it in different ways. And everyone says, oh, they rushed for 365 or whatever it was, 367. And again, like the offensive line did a great job. Everyone did a great job. Yes. Everyone did a great job. But I also thought Cliff did a great job of saying, hey, let's throw a little bit more on first down. Let's possess the football longer. Let's be a little bit more selective about our third and short play calls to make sure that we're possessing the football. And I think that led to an efficiency that we saw earlier in the year. And again, because of kind of the talent on this team, we're not the Detroit Lions, we're not the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, those play calls have to be perfect. That game plan has to be perfect. And I think if you can kind of walk that line, thread that needle in terms of, managing first, second down really well to put yourself in really advantageous third downs, like this team and Cliff has shown an ability to really execute at a high level in those moments. So I think that's what it is. And again, like as you play better teams, those looks become more, those first and second down efficiency numbers become harder to sustain. But I do think they've shown an ability to do that. It just depends, can they do it against the best teams in football? And, everybody struggles against Philly. And I think that was shown in the Baltimore game Philly had. So it'll be interesting to see. But yes, I think Cliff has shown propensity to get that stuff done.
Talking with Logan Paulsen here on BMitch Finlay, Toby Altizer, Linnell Willingham in for them today. Terry McLaurin got more involved this week. How did they do it? Was it, we saw the first play of the game, almost a little troll from Cliff, lining him up on the right side, getting the ball right away. But were there different ways that they schemed him open, or was it more so that they just looked to him and threw him the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the first play I think is really interesting. They got like a little, corner 5-yard sit, bubble to the left. That's a good zone beating concept. And then you get a kind of a smash, like what I would call a smash concept to the offensive right. And they're playing quarters coverage. And in quarters coverage, like, you're going to get off coverage. That's the whole point of quarters. You're defending kind of that deep half of the field with 4 players. You've only got 3 underneath coverage players in quarters. And those smashes, those hitches that Terry ran on that play are going to be open. So I thought understanding what the Tennessee Titans wanted to do on first and second down allowed for some of those opportunities. And I also thought, like the first third down conversion that they have was Terry in the slot on a slant. Like, understanding what Jaden wants to throw and who he wants to throw it to, and getting guys like Terry in good matchups in those man-to-man situations was also really smart by Cliff. So I think obviously the target share went to Terry this week. He was a big part of the game plan. I think that's something that can continue. It's something that will continue. But I think there's also other playmakers in the offense. And I think Cliff throughout the season's done a good job of identifying kind of those specific matchups. This weekend, it just happened to be Terry.
Another guy that had a really good game this week was Chris Rodriguez. Do you think that there's a way that they can involve him, maybe to give B-Rob a little bit of a break? Obviously, if B-Rob is down for whatever reason, any of the games, maybe use him more in a featured role, because I thought he was really impressive and kind of fills that power back role that they missed at times. Obviously, having B-Rob back was nice, but do you think they could get Chris Rodriguez more involved going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so. But I also think it's important to remember how effective Jeremy McNichols has been this year, and I think he's a great special teams guy. He's been great on third down. He's been great, running with a physical mindset. So I don't think we should forget about him. And I think this is the exact way you want to use Chris Rodriguez to spell him. I think you saw glimpses of this in the Giants game, kind of that, closer coming in, and sealing the game, because he does have that physical running style. He is fresh going into the second half. And so, I don't know if you want to kind of mess up the rotation early in game with McNichols and B-Rob potentially, but he is very talented. He's very skilled. He runs hard. And I think he deserves more opportunity. It just depends on how the coaching staff deems to get him those touches. And I think it'll be really interesting to see over the next couple of weeks, his role in the offense with Austin Eckler negotiating this concussion.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Hopefully Eckler can be back sooner rather than later, but I do think Washington's got enough in his absence to keep things going on the offensive side of the football, especially the defense for a second, Logan. All signs point towards Marshawn Lattimore making his Commanders debut out of the bye week, something we've been tossing back and forth. When he gets back out there, if you were Coach Paulsen right now, who are you sliding to the bench? My money says I kick Mikey Sanders still back inside of the slot because it has multiple benefits, including helping my run defense, and that's just his best position. What say you, though? Are you one of those guys that feel as if it should be Benjamin St-Juste that slides to the bench?
Yeah, if you would have asked me this when we signed Marshawn Lattimore, I thought Benjamin St-Juste was playing well enough to deserve that corner spot opposite him, and Noah Iguodagoni was playing well enough in the slot where I thought, he deserved to kind of stay in that position. And then then that leaves Mike Sanders still kind of in this rotational spot role. And that still might happen, but I do think Mikey's shown an ability that's very unique. And what I mean by that is, like, he's a little undersized. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's so instinctive, and he does have this knack for getting his hands on footballs and making plays. And I think over the last couple of weeks, the Philly game, the Cowboy game, he's done a really nice job. And even last game, I know that he gave up a lot of yardage, but in terms of, making plays on that 2-point conversion, knocking the ball out, like, really nice job by him. And so I think he's definitely made it a conversation, one that I was not expecting. I thought it was going to be kind of exactly like what you were saying. Sanders still goes to the slot, Benjamin St-Juste stays outside. But right now, I don't know. And I think they've got to kind of, one of the things I think Dan loves is competition. And I think the addition of Marshawn Lattimore breeds that competition. And the thing that's exciting about competition, if you have the right guys, is it raises all ships. So I'm not sure the decision that they're going to make, but I think they've got the right type of people. I think Benjamin St. Juste is a competitor. I think Mike Sanderson's a competitor, and Noah Benogany's a competitor. I think they all want to play football. And if you've got three guys like that, you're going to get the best version of those guys when Marshawn comes back, and that's something that I'm tremendously excited about.
I'm going to keep things on the defensive side for a second here, Logan. The one thing, as well as they've played here over the past 6 to 8 weeks, I can really say we feel like the identity is more there, the run and hit physical style. The one issue I still have, and for the life of me, I don't understand why they're struggling so much in this department. Maybe I'm hyperbolizing it, Logan. It feels like they can't stop the run consistently to save their lives. When you break down the tape and look at it, what is, obviously it's not just one singular thing that's going to cause your run defense to be compromised. But if there was one thing you can circle and say, if they improve here, I think this is where the turnaround starts, because I think that's the spot. If they're going to really be a playoff defense, man, you got to stop the run more consistently.
Yeah, and so a couple of things there. I think that's a great point because I have similar concerns. I also think that they have one of the highest stuff percentages in the NFL. So even though they're not super consistent on a down-to-down basis, that stuff percentage is something that saves them. And it's really kind of embodies like their defensive philosophy. So what I mean by stuff percentage is,
I think it's 22nd in stuff percentage right now.
22nd, so it's obviously regressed a little bit since the last time I looked at the stat. But I do think when you are this kind of bend but don't break defense, even if you are 22nd, it's okay because you just need to get to that 2nd and 10. Once you're in that 2nd and 10 situation, then you can play your nickel, then you can bring that exotic blitz package, all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that's something that I think is, even though it doesn't feel good all the time, they know what they are and they know how to get around it. And I think that's something that it's important to remind yourself. Like when you're watching the film, it's like, oh man, here's a 5-yard gain, here's a 6-yard gain, but here's a gain of 1, here's a gain of 2, here's a gain of 0. And then that's usually when they can win. They can get you to 3rd down and get off the field, which I think is important. That's something that we haven't seen here for a long time. Now, can it be better? Absolutely. The one thing that I think I would look to is the addition of a guy like Carl Davis. And Carl Davis is, the reason I say that is like his whole career has been stopping the run, right? If you look at the other personnel, Deron Payne, Razan Newton, they have this kind of pass rush, flash, gap penetrating upside. Sometimes you just need a guy that's going to sit there and hold the point. I think that's what they thought Fedarian Mathis was doing. I think that's why right now you're seeing, Fedarian not up last week is because he was kind of struggling in this department. I think even just adjusting the personnel a little bit with a guy like Carl Davis can shift this, right? Can kind of say, hey, we're going to leave, Frankie Louisville uncovered a little bit longer. We're going to leave Bobby Wagner uncovered a little bit longer. And those guys have shown an ability to make plays. And I think those are the types of details that take a team and, maybe you're, what do you say, 22nd.
But here's the thing about the stuff percentage, though. Here's the thing about the stuff percentage, though, Logan. Like, Buffalo's run defense has been a problem at times this year as well, but they're number one in stuff percentage, like you said, though. So it balances itself out,
It balances itself out 100%. But I think, like, if you can just increase that efficiency a little bit, I think they've shown an ability to be very, very effective in those situations. So I think keep an eye on personnel moves like that, like getting Jeremy Chin in the box more. Like, I think that's something that when I watch Joe Witt Jr. call a defense that really sticks out to me is he's okay with rushing efficiency if the team versus the right opponent. But versus like Pittsburgh, a team that's going to run the ball first, he's going to make adjustments, and they showed an ability to get that done. So to me, it's really kind of a Joe Witt Jr. mass thing, stuff percentage thing, personnel thing, all those things kind of factoring into, I think, makes me think they can do it when they want to do it. And they understand that it's an issue, and they are trying to make a correction there too.
Talking with Logan Paulsen here on BMitch and Finlay, Toby Altizer, Linnell Willingham in for the guys today. Looking back at Lattimore, how much does his addition to the lineup change what they're doing in pass defense? Is it something where they simply just have a number one corner and they're able to kind of run their stuff a little bit better because they've got a guy? Or are they going to actually add some stuff now that they have a legit number one corner and they can run some stuff that they couldn't before?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you look at the Tampa Bay game, I think when you look at this Tennessee game too, I think you see the bones of what Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn want to be defensively. They want to play a lot more man coverage than they're playing. And, Linnell was talking about, stopping the run. Like, one of the things that playing man coverage allows you to do, it allows you to get more people near the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage to stop the run. And so when you look at Dallas, like they would kind of fluctuate between playing man and playing cover or Tampa 2 essentially, or a little bit of cover 3. This team now is pretty much like a cover 2, cover 6, predominantly kind of structures, which are much softer zones. You got to play 2 high safeties to kind of keep everything in front of you. I think the addition of a guy like Marshawn Lattimore gives you some flexibility to be like, hey, man, it's first down. Let's play a little bit more man. Let's get Jeremy Chin close to the line of scrimmage. And he's done an excellent job this year stopping the run, but let's get him in better situations, better matchups to do that, to do what Linnell's talking about. So I do think he totally revolutionizes the defense if he comes in as advertised and can play man coverage, can lock guys down, and find better matchups for the other secondary players like we already discussed.
I hope that it's that quick of a fix, Logan, because you mentioned it. Washington plays a light box, third most in the National Football League. It's just not something that they've done, talking about allocating that extra defender inside, and it partially has to do with the lack of trust that they have on the perimeter with these corners. So hopefully Marshawn is able to come in there and help that. Want to get one more in here for you, Logan. The linebacker play to me has been an interesting part of the run defense as well. I'm a huge fan of Frankie Louvu. When you talk about potentially dropping an extra guy into the box, does that free Louvu up to be more of that free roaming Tasmanian devil that they really want him to be? Because that's what I think really who's really going to be the biggest beneficiary.
Yeah, I mean, once you kind of narrow the scope and the responsibility of the linebacker, think about it, in the light box, those guys have to account for more stuff because you're kind of short. You're like a gap and a half short. So when we bring another player into the box and we can play plus, run fits like with a safety or a nickel player, whoever's going to be in there. One of the things that jumps out to me is that now Frankie Louvu's got one gap, one responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think when you watch him on film, one of the things that is really demonstrative about him is like when he can be decisive, he's scary good.
Yes.
And imagine if I just said, hey, it's first down, you have this gap, fit it.
Yeah.
Like think about how much of a nightmare that would be for, the guard or the center that he's dealing with. And I think that would be like quite literally a nightmare. So I think again, like we talked about how if the addition of Lattimore in its best version allows you to do some of this stuff that we saw them do in Dallas, saw Dan Quinn do in Dallas, and obviously Joe Witt Jr. was on that staff. I think it can be pretty exciting for the uptick in production across the defensive board. Now, you don't want to have to be in there kind of revolutionizing everything and changing all the stuff you do, but a small tweak like that is something that could really have a tremendous impact.
Logan, we appreciate you giving us some time. As always, my friend, enjoy the holiday season of the bye week, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on.